homer, led the league in tackles with 85. The deep ball for Darius Prince, and Philadelphia's on the board first.
On the draw, this is Bryson Allen. And Allen weaving his way all the way down to the 22.
10-yard line, 5. Mayfield, dancing all around. Throwing as far as he can throw it. Jump ball coming. Crazy stuff. Not this time.
And you want to be a wide receiver. You're going to have to take a little bit of a hit like that as Brown got him in that shoulder, but watch. Those are teeth.
Do we have a dentist on staff here?
All right, we're back with another episode of Around the Indoor Football World. Today we're joined by a couple of special guests, and the first one up is, of course, the quarterback for the Southwest Kansas Storm, Mr. Jalen Morton. Jalen, how you doing this morning?
I'm great. What about you?
I can't complain at all. Looking forward to learning a little bit more about your career and what led you to the Storm this season. TJ, how are you doing this morning?
Doing good, man. Just another great Saturday.
Absolutely. Lots of football already passed, and more to come this weekend. So always a great weekend when there's this many games on. Ducon, man, it's been a while. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Sam. Doing great. Excited about some football. Thanks for having me today.
Of course. Super excited to have you back on.
Thank you.
We'll just go ahead and jump right into this with the AF1 segment first. Jalen, I mean, I'm gonna ask you a kind of a blunt question, but how you feeling after the Oregon game? I know that was kind of a tough loss there. Lost on a Hail Mary there at the end. Just kind of give us your broad overarching feelings on the game.
It makes you realize that at any moment you're still in the game. And for me, right, I'm a competitor. And my team knows that, and I know my team is a competitive team. And for me, I know I hate losing. So I've always been told, look, you gotta hate losing more than you love winning, and that's one thing I do hate. I hate losing. So
absolutely, Ducon or TJ, you want to jump in with a question?
I'm good for now.
Okay.
Hey, just again, not to kind of beat a dead horse, but after that game, what are some things do you feel potentially, offensively that you could have done differently to maybe put the game away? Obviously to avoid that kind of an ending.
Just score. We just got to score on each possession, and no possession can be unscoreless. If that makes sense. We had that 2-point conversion, that safety, which kind of riled them, and then those turnovers that riled them as well. So that gave them the momentum that they needed. But we should have just kept our foot on their throat and just kept going. And like I said, every possession we just need to score. And I learned a lot from a couple of weeks ago of how that is very successful if you do that as an offense.
Speaking of a couple weeks ago, this is your first forte into arena football. What's it been like adapting to playing indoors rather than outdoors so far?
I say the turf, the scrub daddy, as me and my teammates call it, scrub daddy Brillo pad turf. Some are different, some are not as good. It definitely helps when the area you're playing on. I know some just got laid down like before the game, and some have just really nice turf, and you just got to understand your surroundings. I have a arm on me, so not having to throw it as hard as I can, like I'm on an NFL field or a CFL field or something to that nature, UFL field, you know, it's right there. It's really, everything's really just right there. So, and then just understanding the wall scenario, understanding your scenarios, understanding, what's live, what's not live, what's dead, and just all around the angles of everything. So.
That definitely makes sense. And actually, I'm not going to lie to you, as a fan watching the game, a lot of times a guy hits a wall and I'm like, okay, that play's dead. And then he just keeps running. And I'm like, that's always been a point of contention with me as well. So I could definitely understand, coming from the outdoor game, that's not quite as cut and dry as it is outdoors. But so far, what are your thoughts on Coach Thomas and the staff there in Southwest Kansas?
I love the staff. The staff is amazing. They help us to their best capability of winning. And I say that because as coaches, you call a play, you do your research, you do, your X's and O's during the, you prep. And as players, we do the same, but except we have to play. We have to get those, we have to execute. And I think he's done a pretty good job of, calling the play and putting us in the right position 99.9% of the time. And as players, we just have to execute.
Nice.
I can definitely see that. Ducon or TJ, you guys got anything?
Yeah, Jalen, what is your focal point on your bye week, considering this is your first bye and you kind of been guns blazing basically since the start of the season?
Just getting healthy. And I say that because we took a couple of trips that a lot of teams wouldn't have taken. We went to Washington, and that our whole travel mission there was very hectic. We didn't get there until 4 a.m. Had to play at 4 p.m. and that's very different, for me as a guy that's been in a couple leagues, and you usually don't hear about that. I know in the CFL, you travel, you have 3 games in about 15-ish days or 12 days. I've done it in CFL, but what we did and how we got there at 4 a.m. And then we played at 4 p.m. Then the next week we go to Albany and we're traveling all day Thursday, literally traveling all day Thursday, play Friday, don't get to the hotel until about 1 to 2 a.m. Friday. Got to play, I think, at 6 or 7 on that later that day. So it's definitely different, but it's been done before. So you just got to look at the positive outcome of, okay, we got there, we were able to get some rest. All right, how can we maximize this opportunity?
That sounds nice, to get some rest after all of that.
Oh, yes, definitely.
TJ, you got anything, man?
No, I'm good.
All right. Obviously, you guys played in week 0, and so you have a slight bit of an advantage on some of the other quarterbacks on the board. But currently, if I remember correctly, you're in the top 5 in passing yards, passing touchdowns, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns. Basically, a little bit of everything when you look at the stats that matter. What's it been like so far, kind of coming in, immediately being that leader for the team, and then also finding so much success early? I mean, is this kind of par for the course for your career so far, or how has that felt so far?
It's felt okay. I'm more of a win-loss person. I mean, and individual stats are okay, and I mean, we're 2-2 at the end of the day, and that just means I have to do better as a leader of the team to get us right and get us back on path of a winning team, and just ironing out the wrinkles and whatnot. I say we are the team of capable of going undefeated or winning out. And I just feel like those stats right now don't matter if we're not winning. So I'm more of a win person. I'd rather see wins, and my running back have 40 touchdowns and, my wide receivers are taking screen plays or bubble plays to the house and I didn't do anything. Like those yards look good on me, or we get in the end zone and it's a 1 yard rushing touchdown. Like, yeah, they look good for me, but that win looks even better as a team. So
Absolutely. So you guys have had some injuries, specifically at the wide receiver position. You lost Daquan Bailey-Brown, kind of the spark plug of the team, if you will. Great guy. Talk to me about transitioning at wide receiver with Charles Hall coming in there, and then also having D-Wash and then Shiloh Flanagan, and how that's all kind of come together so far for you guys.
First and foremost, I just want to say we pray for Daquan Daly, and that's a very unfortunate thing for him. We miss him truly and dearly. We wish we could have him back, but it's one of those things where it's like next man up. And Charles has stepped up. He has been there. I think last game he almost had 100 yards, and he should have had 4 touchdowns. But the things happen. He's definitely stepped up. He stepped up a lot, and then Shiloh and Washington. Wash is a vet, and then Shiloh's a vet. D-Wash is almost a 10-year vet. I think Shiloh is this is second, third year, and so learning from both of those guys has really upped my game in all aspects. And then Charles and I coming from the outdoor league. We were very similar with each other. We kind of already knew each other. So we created that bond very quickly, as well as other guys on the team as well. So
definitely makes sense. TJ, do you have anything?
Just speaking more on you personally, growing up, who was some of your favorite quarterbacks, and who do you feel like you emulate your play to the most?
growing up, it was Tom. It was Tom and Peyton. More of Peyton, because I don't know why I just heard about him a lot more than Tom at the time. But it was definitely Peyton and Tom Brady. And I say that because the things I'm able to do now, you'd be surprised I wasn't able to do when I was younger, when I was little. I mean, maybe Pee-wee days, but like as, junior high, high school, those days came about, my mind and my arm were the thing. Like I can get out of situations using those things, but my feet were probably about a C, on a Madden. They were probably about a 75 rating at the time. And they're probably like, an 85, 86 now, but other than that, I would probably emulate more of a Steve McNair type. I I was in college, I was always kind of called a little McNair in a sense because of what I did. And, he's from Alcorn. So uh, that's kind of what I emulate in a sense that a little bit of Cam, a little bit of Josh Allen. Um, who else? Nobody can emulate Lamar Jackson. But I feel like I'm kind of a best of all worlds, all jack of all trades when it comes to doing what I need to do. I have a strong arm like Josh. I have the throwing ability like Pat to where I can throw at all slot angles and I can get the ball there. I have quickness and speed. So it's one of those things where like I'm a jack of all trades and I feel like I'm a danger when it comes to a lot of things and the ability to do a lot of things.
Isn't that the truth? I mean, that's why we find you, top 5 across the league for all these statistics. Ricky Burtz is tuning in and he says, saw the flyer for the camp today. Good deal with you guys doing that for the kids in the community today. They definitely need things like that. Can you talk to us a little bit about how much the Southwest Kansas Storm are involved in the community in Dodge City?
We're involved very much in the community. More times than not, we're getting up around 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. or something to that nature, and we're going to either read or talk to the kids or just hang out with the kids at the elementaries, or we've shown up to the high schools a couple of times, or junior highs. We play basketball with the kids, and this is just one of the many events that we've held that's been on the flyer scale. We all the time will go in the YMCA, or and just play basketball or just talk to the kids, because they'll come up to us and like, hey, do you want to shoot around or stuff? And why not? They want to. That's how I kind of got my respect. I was playing with the older kids and trying to beat their heads, and then that's kind of what I did. So why not? So just things of that nature, in all shapes, form, and fashions. Just reading to the kids, drawing with the kids, helping them like with math or anything to that nature. So it's really fun. It's a fun thing to do, to give back to the community, because everybody doesn't have the same sources that we have or we had. And I know for me, I didn't have a lot of resources. I didn't have pros coming to my school, in any level. So we definitely appreciate helping the kids, and I know they appreciate us and just having a great time with them.
Absolutely love that. It's about the next generation always, right? That's kind of why a lot of these athletes out here do what they do. You guys are able to kind of motivate and be a mentor to some of these kids, which I think goes a long way. And honestly, that's been one of the things that's always kind of kept me invested in arena football is how available some of you guys as athletes are to these kids. I mean, I'll never forget my kid's first arena football game. We were able to go up and kind of have him sign or get his shirt signed and stuff like that. And it's a different experience for them from coming to from like major league sports, where you don't ever really get to meet the athletes or anything like that. So I think it's one thing that has always kind of struck me as a really good thing that arena football does. They definitely make their coaches and athletes very available for everybody.
Right.
TJ, do you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Awesome. In that case, I'm going to leave you with one last question. Let you get out of here for the morning. You guys have an interstate rival coming up next week in Salina. What's the focus? What's the team message heading into that game to hopefully get this thing turned around after 2 losses?
Going back to being ourselves, just executing. And that's the thing. That's been the thing for the last 2 weeks. Just being ourselves, executing, and just being relentless, and not being complacent at any point. Just gas on the pedal when we have it, and just being, like I said, being ourselves. We can't stress that enough. We're a team that we can score points at any time. And that's the thing. We just have to execute. We have to trust the play calling. And I'm not saying we aren't. I'm just saying trust the play calling in general. Trust what we see. Trust what we do. Fundamentals, and just stay to ourselves. Stay true to ourselves, and everything else will iron the wrinkles out. So.
Love it. Do you have anybody you want to shout out, or anybody you want to say something to while you have the chance?
Of course, I definitely want to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Without him, none of this would be possible. It's a daily thing that I get a reminder that this is a privilege. This is a blessing. This is grateful, and I wouldn't be here without him. And I know opportunities will be on opportunities, and this is an opportunity, and you just got to take a hold of it. Of course, my family, I want to thank them heavily for their support in all aspects. So I just want to say, thank you to y'all. So.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, thank you so much for your time this morning, Jalen. I apologize again that I was delayed. I'm looking forward to seeing exactly what happens next week and the rest of the season. Something tells me that you guys will be right there in the thick of things for the playoffs.
Of course. I appreciate you for having me. Thank you.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of your day, sir.
You as well.
I'm just being myself, cool as can be. When I'm being myself, you wish you were me. It's so easy. Get out your own way. It's just so easy.
All right, we are back, and Krish is now joining us for this morning. How you doing, Krish?
I'm doing good, just enjoying our bye week, ready to get after it next week. So
Absolutely. So let's jump into the IFL segment. We got to debut a new team last night. Showed off their new field, got their home opener out of the way, and they're 2-0 already. So let's go ahead and talk real quickly about the Fisher's Freight. I mean, what are you guys' feelings immediately about how everything's been going for them? Did you see them at 2-0 after 2 games, before the season? Let's go to Krish first on this one.
yeah, I mean there was no excuses. There was no we didn't get the uniform in time, or our field is like this. Nope, they put on a show, right? Top to bottom. I mean Dixie Wood runs a really tight program. I think he finally, for the first time in a long time, he has ownership that backs up his vision. And I think now that he has that, I think the possibilities are endless for him, really. He's a great coach. He got his son in the offense coordinator. He got one of our former DBs as the DB coach, Keontae. So I'm just, I'm happy to see that team do well. I'm excited to play them next week. But I think from a fan perspective, to draw over, 5,500 people at your first game is amazing. I mean, that's something you should be proud of. That shows how hard, Joe Zolo and all those people down there have been going just to pack that place out. And I think that place is only going to get more filled. The excitement felt real. They had their own beer. Just the way that team is run is like how a team should be run, like top to bottom. The living, the food, everything. So I'm really happy. I think, again, it shows why the IFL is the number 1 league. The team on the field is amazing. I mean, it's a really good team. I was really surprised. I'll be honest. Like, their offense with Jaya, right? I mean, they don't run a really, pass-heavy offense, but they execute. They go down the field and score, right? Their defense plays really good. They have a really good DB room. I mean, Devin Halford, he was with us last year, so I know what he's capable of. But I'm just the 2 games they played, they won, but they played complete games, like 2 complete football games from top to bottom, in my opinion. I think they played amazing. I think it's good for the league. So
definitely agree. I mean, honestly, Fishers came out firing, and that's exactly what you want an expansion franchise to do. And not only did they come out firing in that instance, but they also seem to be doing everything right. I mean, that field looks gorgeous. Like you said, there was a ton of fans there last night. Actually, I believe Chad mentioned 5,679 fans in attendance for their home opener, which when you're talking about a 7,500 capacity, that's a good start to the season. And honestly, I think it's only going to get better if they continue to be competitive. And I think if we are being honest with ourselves here, I think it was by design that they went out and assembled a really good roster because they wanted to be competitive in year 1. They want to build that momentum and ultimately bring in a lot of fans right off the jump, which I think is just intelligent all the way across the board. TJ, talk to us a little bit about where you saw this team being after 2 weeks before the season started.
I mean, full honesty, with Dixie Wooten there, I mean, he's a storied head coach, his resume speaks for itself. As soon as I saw that he was going to be involved with the team, I knew the sky was the limit because the guy he just knows how to coach. He knows how to get the best out of players. and he's also a great human being. So, there was nothing not to cheer for, especially for a new expansion team. And seeing some of the videos and pictures from last night, man, it's like Krish said, man, if every arena and indoor team was like that, I mean, they'd be on a new level. Top notch. The dasher boards, the end zones, the cool off color field, and then of course the most important thing. You look around. Do you see more empty seats or do you see more fans? I saw a packed house, and that was just really awesome to see. I really do think the sky's the limit for this franchise as a whole. And to start off 2-0, I mean, how do you get a new team, a new area and city even more hyped about than just having a new team, having them be good right from the jump? I think honestly, with the way this team was assembled, they can be a year one playoff expansion team.
I completely agree. Krish, we've talked a lot about it in the chat. I think next week you guys have Fishers, correct? So as a Massachusetts fan, how do you feel about their performance the last 2 weeks, and how do you look at Massachusetts and wonder how you guys will stack up?
Right. I mean, obviously we haven't been able to finish games. I think that's the theme. For week one, they played amazing, right? I've said this before. I think Jacksonville played a really good game fully. I'm really, I'm kind of moved on from that. I think, we shit the bed that game, and then game two, I felt like we played better. I think our defense is elite. I think we were really special defense, and I think Coach Griggs had that unit playing hard. On the offensive side, that's what's been killing us. We brought in a new offensive coordinator, Martino Theus. I'm really excited about what he can do. Duke City Gladiators scored 56 points in 2021. They led the league in scoring under his reign. So he clearly, knows how to coach indoor at a high level. Granted, he did have Nate Davis, but I mean, offense as a whole, your offense is scoring, like you must be doing something right. So I'm excited to have him with the talented pieces we have. We signed a new quarterback, Felix Harper. That came to a surprise to me. I didn't know what we were going to do with Kenji. I still don't know what we're going to do with Kenji. I don't know if it's an open quarterback situation, if Felix is going to come in and start right away. I have some speculation. I think it might be an open competition, but I think we'll find out more next week. But if Felix is starting, I mean, he knows this game, right? He knows Dixie Wooten's system. So if you have a quarterback that knows this game with the talent he has, I mean, he has great offensive line, great running backs, great receivers. He actually played with Isaac in high school, right? So that's one of Isaac's best friends. And so that's part of the reason why he's up in Mass. And so I'm really glad, excited to have that new leadership with him. And, maybe that can be a symbiotic relationship for Kenji. Maybe he can teach Kenji the game too, right? If, Kenji feels he has a long career in indoors. So I'm really, really excited. Like I said, I think our team's talent is amazing. I think we have such a talented team. I think we would blow out any of these teams, IFA, ELF, any of these leagues, man. Like, we're handing out the smoke. I know we're 0-2 right now, but we're about to go on a run. So I feel really good, honestly.
Fair enough. You're always a confident guy. I love that about you. Ricky mentions, based upon my experience, it's always the team's second game where the attendance is even larger due to all of the fans and community talking about it. So I'm expecting there to be even more fans there. Man, I really hope that's the case. They might have a sellout in week two if that's or not week two, but their second game at home if that's the case. To see what they were able to produce in their first home game was just impressive. All the way from the look to the feel, all of it. It was really awesome to see. Ducon, how did you see Fishers coming out of the box this year? Did you ultimately feel that they would be 2-0 at this point, or were you not quite sure based on the expansion team?
In all honesty, I felt like they were going to be like just any other expansion team, really struggle their first year. I knew that they had their structure down good. I knew that they were a very professional team. Everything about their rollout was just super professional. So I thought that what part would look good. But the on-field product, I did not see them being 2-0 at this point. And to be right honest, I mean, in our pick'em, I saw a lot of you guys picking Fishers over Tulsa, and I kept saying to myself, what is it about Fishers that you guys are all onto? And the response I got was Dixie Wooten. And I was like, well, he was down in Tucson, and it didn't really pan out very well for Tucson. And so I didn't think it was just the Dixie Wooten factor, but I have to resound what Krish said. You know, he's given what he needs to really put together a great football product. And it's one of the best I've ever seen. It was amazing to watch that game last night. It was incredible from top to the bottom. I did not see him getting here, but they put the entire league on watch at this point.
Completely agree. I wasn't sure how they would come out of the box. I had a lot of confidence in what they were building, primarily from the roster building perspective. I mean, just a lot of the guys they brought in were high level players before. A lot of them are also very recent indoor football signees. A lot of them have played outdoors and stuff like that. So that they're high level players. So it was definitely interesting to see kind of how there was a split there as far as fans, especially in our pick'em. A lot of the guys that have been doing it for years, picking games and whatnot, they picked against Fishers. I had one guy tell me in particular, Michael Washington, mentioned that he'll never pick an expansion team in their first game because typically they lose. Well, I guess this is one of the exceptions to the rule because they came out firing, won on the road, which is obviously always a good start, and then jumped right into a home game and went ahead and won that one as well. So kind of interesting how it's all come together. TJ, when you're looking across the IFL so far this season, how do you feel they stack up versus some of the other teams in the league? I mean, are they potentially one of the better teams in the league right now?
I mean, 2 games, it's a snapshot, but I mean, they pass the eye test for me. They really do. Just the way they were able to play, like you said, first game ever in franchise history on the road. I've seen it dozens of times, and Mike from the network, he was completely right. Normally, expansion teams do not win, but they were able to pull that out. And then last night, in front of a home crowd, I mean, let's be honest, home field advantage does play a part, and if you are one of the teams that does not struggle attendance-wise in arena football, that's a huge advantage to have. I was not at the game last night, but I can only imagine it was rocking, and it's going to get sent around the league that it's kind of hard to play in Fishers because they have a huge following, and it's hard to hear at times, I bet. So I really do feel like they could compete with some of the higher teams. Quad City. Green Bay always seems to be around towards the end in the IFL as well. I really could see them taking just about any team down to the wire.
Agreed.
Definitely, yeah. It's been a interesting season so far, and I feel like there's some teams that haven't performed quite as well as I would have expected, and there's some teams that are outperforming what I would have expected. So definitely interested to see how this season continues to go. I mean, coming up this weekend, we've got some great games that I'm really looking forward to. I'm not sure if you guys have seen, and I wanted to get your guys' opinions on this, but Quad City and Iowa on Twitter have been going back and forth and kind of making this game a little bit more interesting. I guess there's a bet about how they're going to handle their profile pictures for the next week after this game. So I'm kind of interested to see how that works out. But did you guys see that? And what are your feelings on stuff like that? The extracurriculars they're friendly, but there's still a little bit of air of confidence from the team that are kind of throwing it out there. Let's go to Krish on this one first.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good, as long as we're not like other leagues where we, two established franchises not shaking hands at the coin toss 2 weeks in a row, right? As long as we show respect, we can have fun. That's my biggest thing is always show respect. I think Iowa and Quad Cities, they do things the right way. I think Iowa should maybe spend less time on Twitter and focus on the game. I mean, 0-2 going in the bye. Like, I think ownership's going to have a serious conversation about what direction that team is headed in, after a 5-11 season last year. But no, I think it's good. I really do. I think it promotes the league. It gets people interested. And it's the little things like that add up for the IFL. And it's why they're the number one league, because they know how to use social media the right way and they know how to promote. And I think it's amazing, honestly.
Yeah, I tend to agree on that as well. And granted, it was Quad City who started it. They have a little bit to work with there in terms of winning their first game. So, I mean, I just thought it was kind of cool to see that, there's some interaction between the teams and stuff like that. And like you said, that kind of draws in some fans. So, Ducon, what are your feelings on that? And ultimately just the rest of this weekend's games.
Friendly trash talk is an aspect of entertainment in this sport that I wish we had more of, to be right honest. And Iowa's really good at it, not in the sense that they have a lot to back it up, but they're really good at taking their low points and making it fun. For example, last year when they unveiled their new turf, and I think maybe Krish knows better on this. I think they started like 0-5 or 0-6. It was pretty rough start to the season, and they started selling T-shirts that says, "At least our turf looks good," and they were selling really good. And some of the friendly banter that they had with the Green Bay Blizzard, social team and PR team was just a lot of fun. And I totally agree with Krish. As long as everybody's shaking hands, before and after games and stuff like that, I think anything like this actually adds to the game, adds to the entertainment aspect, and I really look forward to it all year. As far as the rest of the games go this season, I'm just excited. We've seen some pretty cool stuff so far. Some of you know that I was a little bit discouraged after week one just because of low scoring and just wondering where is the game headed. Can we really advertise it as fast-paced, high-scoring game on half the size of an outdoor field? And I think at least last week we saw a lot better scoring, so I hope it gets better.
That was a good point. It was something that I don't think a lot of people were talking about. So, I mean, good on you for pointing that out, because it did seem like a slow start to the season, compared to what we're used to with this sport in particular. TJ, what are your feelings on this kind of friendly rivalry on Twitter, and then also this weekend's games?
I'm pretty much in agreement with everybody else. As long as you keep it friendly and don't cross that line, then it's great for the sport, because friendly banter is always a good thing. I mean, we have it on our chat. We mess with each other all the time, and it builds camaraderie. It also builds a little aspect of connection, between the teams, and then the fans that get involved, and everything else. So I do like it. But again, as everyone else already said, as long as you keep it, fun and respectful, don't cross that line. Really, for this season in the IFL, I mean, honestly, the most I'm kind of interested to see where Fishers goes. After their hot start and just the Rockin' Arena atmosphere last night. So, but yeah, I'm just really excited to see how Fishers does, and just excited to see how the season unfolds for all all the games and all the leagues this year.
Agreed. Thank you to Ducon who joined us. He did have to get out of here. Super excited every time we get to have him on. He was a big part of this show when we first started it, and we're looking to hopefully get him back involved again. But busy man, has a lot of stuff going on, so he won't be here every week, but definitely excited to get him back on again. Looking forward to having him back on a lot more in the future as well. So I think this would be a good time to talk some quarterbacks. I wanted to get you guys' opinion on the quarterback play as a whole in the IFL this season. And I'm going to throw something at you, and if you don't agree, perfectly fine. That's kind of what we're here for. I personally think this might be the best quarterback play across the board that we've seen in possibly any indoor league in many years this season so far. And I kind of wanted to get your guys' feelings on that in particular. I mean, do you believe that we might have like the most talent that we've seen in a long time in the IFL this season, or how do you feel about that? Let's go to Krish first.
Yeah, so I think when you say that, you mean like across the board, right? So 1 through 14. I agree. I think there's so much talent in the league. We talk about it all the time at the quarterback position. I mean, look at Iowa, right? A lot of people consider Iowa the worst team in the league, right? Or on the power rankings. I know it's only 1 week, but I look at how good that Collazo kid played. He played amazing. First game throwing 5 touchdowns. Like, I thought he played a really, really quality game. And so that's him. Watch how he develops over the season. And then you look at San Antonio with Malik, right? Malik threw 2 picks first week. He went like 20 for 25 with 3 tutties, no picks, second game. So to watch the evolution of these guys, it's really, something special. And I think it's only going to get better. You look at us, right? You can say our quarterback play has been, iffy. But whoever we have under center, whether it's Kenji for, a third week, he's going to have that under, hopefully under his belt, or it's Felix, right, who has experience. So I think it's constantly improving. I think these teams know they need a quarterback. I think the only team that needs a quarterback badly is Tucson. Tucson needs anything. I think any of us could throw the ball for Tucson better than what they got now. So, I think teams know they need good quarterbacks to keep up in this league. So.
Put me in, Coach. I'm ready. TJ, what are your thoughts on the quarterback situation for the IFL so far this season?
I'll put it in the most basic terms. This season so far, the highlight reel is the best it's been in a while, and that's always a good thing. I feel like, and especially, I'll just say compared to other leagues playing right now, they are definitely the most impressive. Certain quarterbacks, are struggling in other leagues, but in the IFL, you really don't have any quarterback playing horrendous right now, and that's awesome to see. Especially since they are considered the top tier league right now in the space. I think the IFL is proving that they are the class of arena and indoor football, and a lot of the quarterbacks are like Chris said, some of the stat lines they're just balling out early on and making a lot of right decisions, and it's just overall good for the league and good for the sport because you don't come to an arena or indoor football game to see a 17-7 final. You want to see high scoring, you want to see a lot of explosive plays and highlights on social media and stuff. So it's really good for the league and the sport, and I would definitely agree that a lot of these quarterbacks are definitely playing out right now.
Definitely agree. And honestly, it's good to see. Obviously, we can sit here and debate all day what the most important position in sports is, but at the end of the day, quarterback is pretty damn important. They touch the ball every play, so especially in the IFL where they're running the ball a lot. So if it weren't for this success by those quarterbacks, we might not necessarily have as entertaining of a season. But we're going to kind of transition a little bit, and I wanted to get your opinion on some of these bets that are on the board here. So we've got 4 games left over. The Quad City Steamwheelers versus the Iowa Barnstormers, the Arizona Rattlers versus the Green Bay Blizzard, Vegas Nighthawks versus the Jacksonville Sharks, San Diego Strike Force versus the Bay Area Panthers. So real quick, TJ, I know you're an avid bettor. Where are you going this weekend?
Ooh. Well, in my personal opinion, if you're going for a lock, my pick would be a 2-game parlay. It would be money line Quad City and Arizona. They're both obviously all the games, the spreads are pretty close, but you just got to go with the eye test. And the Arizona Rattlers, they're always one of the tougher teams to beat no matter where they're playing. And Quad City, I just feel like they got something going on early this year. They're off to a good start. The Nighthawks and Sharks game that should go down to the wire. The Nighthawks, I was kind of thinking they'd come out a little bit, looking a little bit stronger, a little bit more solidified. And in my opinion, the pure coin toss game of the weekend is the Strike Force and Panthers game. That one could really go either way for me, in my own opinion.
The Clash of California. It's been dubbed so far. Man, what do you think about some of these over and unders here? We've got 81.5 points on 3 of the games and 83.5 on San Diego and Bay Area.
Well, they're expected to be some pretty fun games from the looks of it. Quad City and Iowa. Oof. I would be. I'm. My gut feeling is to bet the over if I was to pick the game. Arizona and Green Bay. You know, I'm almost siding with the under in that one. Probably just by a few points, not a lot, but I feel like they'll just miss that 82 threshold that you're looking for. Vegas and Jacksonville. I'd I'd be tempted to go with the under in that game as well. I could probably see that game being, like both teams scoring in, the mid to high 30s. Maybe one team hits, low 40s, other team sticks in the 30s. And Strike Force and Panthers. You know what, man? It's the game of the week in my opinion. It's the Battle of Cali. I'm gonna go with the over. I think there's gonna be a lot of fireworks in that game.
I could definitely see that. Battle of two of the best quarterbacks in the league. Really excited to see how that all comes down. Bay Area looks like another talented team. I mean, honestly, all these games are pretty much toss-ups. I would say the one that it kind of doesn't feel like a toss-up right now is probably Quad City and Iowa. I'd probably take that 2.5 point spread pretty easily and wouldn't feel too bad about it if I was betting on Quad City. Arizona, Green Bay, I think that honestly could be a little bit tight of a spread that I personally would not have assumed it would have been that close. But that's definitely one of those things where I think it's early in the season. They're still trying to feel out some of these teams, see how good they really are or how bad they really are. And that's why some of them are tighter spreads than they might be later on in the season. I think, honestly, it's a really tight race for me between the game of the week here with that Vegas-Jacksonville game in San Diego and Bay Area. I mean, both of those games are going to be great football to watch. Arizona and Green Bay is going to be another good game to watch. Super excited to see what they come out firing with because this is a good weekend of football, for lack of a better term here. But real quick, why don't we go ahead and just do our picks? Who do you have out of these 4 games?
In these 4 games, I picked Quad City over Iowa, Arizona over Green Bay, Vegas over Jacksonville, and Bay Area over San Diego.
Gotcha. I think my picks were actually the same. I got Quad City, Arizona, Vegas, and Bay Area at home. So definitely interested to see how these games finish up. Excited to see these games play out, and ultimately, hopefully, we have some quality streams. On that note, we're going to hit a quick commercial. We'll come right back, and we'll transition over to the NAL and talk about some streaming issues.
SeatGeek is the ticketing app for fans like Boomstick Lady. No free throw is safe from the roar of her sticks. SeatGeek helps her find a seat in the direct eye line of the shooter so she can sit where her boomsticks make the biggest boom. Everybody okay? SeatGeek handles the tickets to sports, concerts, and more, so fans can fan.
All right, so we are back. We're going to talk about some National Arena League news. Most importantly, let's go ahead and start with the biggest news of the day. The Omaha Beef have ultimately decided to make a change at head coach and offensive coordinator after a 3-0 record. What were your initial feelings on that move?
I don't know if it was, on the surface, it's a little premature, in my opinion. When you're 3-0, obviously, offensively, especially looking lackluster. Defense has been on point this season. They're the reason they're 3-0. Let's be honest, especially with the last game against Idaho. But you're transitioning from to a new quarterback. And when your former quarterback was league MVP status, and everything else. You're gonna have some bumps. So on the surface, I felt like it was a little premature, but when you dig in deeper into it, there were questions on timing of play calling, some questionable decisions to either challenge or not challenge certain rulings on the field that later upon review, would have been a win for the challenge. So I I I I guess personally as an Omaha Beef fan, I was kind of shocked by it, but I understand the move because the team is playing a little lackluster this season. They're definitely not playing up to the standard that has been the Omaha Beef for the last couple years in particular. Obviously going undefeated, winning championships. But I want to see the big difference though. If you make this move and there is no, specifically for the offensive side of the ball, a big splash in their next game, then the change, at least for fans, is going to be what really has changed. What was the point of doing that then? So I want to see the offense look a lot better because, quite frankly, again, they've looked very lackluster, uncharacteristic turnovers in big moments. Late in games, when it's usually the offense that has put games away for them, they've had to rely on defense. And it's awesome to have, probably the top defense in the NAL right now. But at the same time, defense isn't always going to be able to step up, especially in a sport aimed for, points. So their offense definitely has to get back on, and hopefully we see it next game because averaging I believe high 20s, low 30s so far through the first 3 games. That's not going to cut it when you start to face playoff teams, or you're in the playoffs and you're facing teams that are averaging 40, 45 points a game.
Absolutely, and I'm I don't want to speak for anybody in Omaha, but I'd be willing to bet that's exactly why you make this change. You have an offensive-minded head coach who was previously your offensive coordinator. You also have a fairly new offensive coordinator to the team. So, I could definitely see you not being happy with that output and ultimately deciding, hey, we're not looking like the Omaha Beef that fans have come to know, and we're not happy with that. And honestly, from a fan's perspective, obviously you never want to see a coach fired this early in the season or really in general, but I kind of understand that. At the end of the day, you've built up a standard for your team that you're not going to lose games. You're going to be among the best in the league, and you're going to compete for a championship every season. So it's something where, you've kind of, I don't want to say painted yourself into a corner, because obviously every team wishes that they were in the same boat as Omaha in terms of, not losing a game for almost 2 seasons straight. But it's a situation where, you've definitely elevated your standards to such a level that you just can't deal with any sort of, negative in games, especially on the offensive side. But definitely, I kind of wanted to touch on this. You mentioned it a little bit there, but Tommy Armstrong, I knew it was going to be a big loss right off the bat. Obviously Nebraska guy in terms of college and everything. So obviously the fans loved him, but he was obviously a huge part of this offense and maybe a little bit bigger part of the offense than I truly expected, because I honestly thought Omaha would come out firing. And not much would change, especially after they signed Lorenzo Brown. But even after signing Brown, it seemed like there was just some sort of disconnect that just wasn't quite working how they had hoped. But again, that's why you make this move. So I'm very interested to see who they bring in at the coaching positions, because I think, knowing that organization, again, they want to compete for a championship every year. So something tells me that we're going to get a little bit of a splash on the coaching hires, and it'll be interesting to ultimately get to weigh that out next week or the week after when we finally have that news. So looking forward to that. But let's transition over to another topic. Chad says this season it seems like beef isn't for what's for dinner. Leave it up to Chad, but let's transition over to another topic. This past game in Idaho, great game to watch for the most part, but there were some definite streaming issues with, some lagginess, some buffering, stuff like that. And then ultimately it was reported that Right Now TV basically dropped the game and ultimately filled airtime with other things. Now, obviously, as a television network, you kind of have to be prepared to pivot sometimes when things like this happen. Obviously, not ideal for the NAL. In your mind, how do they recover from this in terms of the right now TV aspect? I mean, obviously, for the casual fans that were watching, that was not a good look ultimately, you know. And to be clear, they were not the only league that had streaming issues on Thursday either. So we will get to that here in a second as well. We're not trying to pile on the NAL by any stretch. Just wanted to make sure that's out there as well. But what were your thoughts about the game overall, and then also that look on the with the streaming?
I mean, it was unfortunate because underneath the streaming issues, it was actually a really great game. It was really entertaining, a lot of great plays. It was a back and forth game for the most part. You know, there were a lot of points scored, so really it should have been a home run hit for the NAL. It really should have been. Unfortunately, though, the streaming, I mean, there were certain parts, I believe, in the second quarter where it hit its peak, where it was like every 10, 15 seconds, it was freezing up or buffering. It was just really unfortunate. It was really unfortunate. I know we were messaging each other because we were all worried it was our own Wi-Fi going in and out. But it really should have been a great night for the NAL and right now TV for them to drop it, to fill the slot like you said. That's the professional move to do when one broadcast is not up to par. The NAL, they need to get they need to figure it out. I don't know whose end it was necessarily on. I tend to believe it was some kind of connection issue inside the arena, because that's normally what happens when streaming issues like that happen. But again, I don't know. I'm not affiliated with it, so I don't want to throw shade in the wrong area. But it was just really unfortunate. The NAL, for what they can do, it's the simplest thing, man. Just do better next time. Prove that you've worked on it. Prove that that was not up to the standard. This is our standard, and then boom, have a perfect streaming game. Whatever kind of precautions they can do to prevent that from happening again, they definitely have to work on, invest in, do something, because if they start to get the mantra of, hey, we got this awesome game, but odds are the stream is not going to be up to par, people are going to start tuning out, especially when you're again in a landscape with multiple leagues all playing relatively, if not at the exact same time, pretty close to the same time. So it's the easiest way to lose people on the broadcast side of things and streaming side of things. So they just have to do better, and hopefully they do, because I mean, if their games continue to be relatively competitive and close like that game was, they should have a high viewership and should have a big following. But again, if the streams keep being lackluster, you're going to see a drop off, and nobody wants to see that in this sport. We want to see all the leagues and all the teams thrive.
Exactly. And I like what Ricky says here. That's worth pointing out and completely valid. We need to own it. When that's coming from one of the team owners, that's always a good sign, because obviously they're going to actively be trying to fix it. And that's one thing that I love about this NAL, this version of the NAL. They take a lot of culpability when issues happen. So I'm excited to see the future for all of these leagues, but because I feel that there's a lot of good owners, much like Ricky, out there right now, that are really trying to do it the right way. But as far as this game goes, I was kind of surprised by how Idaho came out firing. I mean, honestly, I had picked Shreveport in this one. So, obviously I took a loss there, but they came out and they looked like a lot better team in this game than they had in the weeks past, even though they took Omaha down to the wire a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, what were your feelings overall about the game itself? I know you said it was kind of a back and forth affair. Did you expect Idaho to win?
Much like you, I took an L on that one. To be completely honest, my main thought was, looking back to their last game against the Beef, and it was, did they play that game that tough, or did the Beef just, not to throw shade at Idaho, but did the Beef keep them in the game by making the mistakes on their offensively? honestly, I'm kind of happy that they did that good because that means, they're they're showing signs of a good team, which makes me feel better. That's why they took the beef down to the wire. But but no, man, they really came out. They showed up offensively, scoring 50 points. I mean, that's a big jump from again their last game where offensively, they had a lot of miscues, a lot of ill-timed penalties, a couple bad snaps that basically cost the game in the end. So to see them look a lot more like a polished machine on offense, that was really good to see. If they can keep trending, hey, you never know, man. They could be there. They could be one of the final four teams, or even one of the final two. Again, that's a long ways away. It's still early in all the seasons, but especially the NAL. But I think Idaho showed that hey, we're not necessarily a pushover like we may have been dubbed after the first week or two of the season.
Yeah, I would definitely agree, and I think maybe that Omaha game was a little bit of foreshadowing about how talented Idaho really is this season. I know we have been hard on them in our rankings so far this year. I'm not going to lie to you guys, but Gio Sanders came out fire and reminded us all how quality of a quarterback he can be. And honestly, it was a great game by the end of it. So it's really too bad that there were those streaming issues, because I think that's definitely the exact type of game you need to kind of draw in those casual fans that aren't really aware of, how competitive this league can be. And I mean, just to kind of throw this out there, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this as well. I mean, if you look at this past weekend or past really 3 to 4 games, we're talking about a very competitive league overall. I mean, you got Shreveport and Idaho. There was a 10-point difference in that game, but realistically, it wasn't that big of a gap, most of the game. Colorado and Sioux City, there's 35-26, only 9-point deficit there. Omaha and Idaho, 2 weeks ago, 28-24. You got a lopsided game in in Columbus, where Carolina was blown out 25-0, and then they turn around and beat Columbus the next week 40-20. Wheeling and Shreveport was a 20-13 game. Basically you look all the way back to week 1, and most of these games have been really, really competitive. So it's been a thing where realistically you can tune in any game, any week, and you're gonna get a good product on as far as competition wise, which I think speaks volumes about the league as a whole and how it's all come together. Because really, last season, for lack of a better term, and again, I'm not meaning to pile on Idaho here, but they were kind of a doormat, coming up from another league, from the AWFC, jumping into the NAL, which is a higher level competition, without a doubt. They struggled some, I think they only won 1 or 2 games, if I remember correctly. And honestly, there were a couple games that they just were not competitive. This season, it seems like Chris Reynolds and company went out of their way to make sure that was not going to be the case. So I'm excited to see that, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this season unfolds for every team, because it's been a refreshing change for the league as a whole so far this season. A couple comments we're going to get to. Chad says, damn Shreveport. Did anyone pick Idaho? There was somebody who picked Idaho, and actually let me double check our picks here. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they picked a couple games that were upset picks. Give me just a moment. Sorry about that. My son woke up really early, and he's right here by my microphone. So I apologize about any background noise and fire engine noises. So looking back at our picks, Trey with Off the Wall picked Idaho. Postman Wookie, if he's watching, also picked Idaho. Arena Football Anonymous picked Idaho. And Pylon Productions also picked Idaho. So definitely a lot of people who picked Idaho. They saw something last week that they liked, and I was definitely on the other side of things. I thought Shreveport would get some stuff together, but you definitely have to question the bottom half of this league moving forward. So Krish, NAL missed a huge opportunity on Thursday night being the only free product. He's not wrong. That is a great point. They were the only free game of the week. On Thursday anyway, and it's ultimately a situation where it didn't go as planned. That's for sure. Chad laughing at the fire engine. Dang, more than he thought that picked Idaho. I agree. I honestly thought it was only one person, but looking back, it was quite a few. Krish says, just being honest, I felt bad because they had one guy doing production and calling the game. That's tough for sure. Wookie doing a dab, showing us he's the man on the picks, and honestly, he's doing pretty good this week. I'm not gonna lie. So keep an eye on Carolina. That's the other team he picked. Nice pick, Wookie. And then Wheeling has a chance to break and expose Carolina tonight. Yeah, Chris, you're biased. We'll see what happens, but you're definitely as biased as it gets when it comes to Wheeling. So definitely looking forward to that game. It's going to be another good one. If you watched the last Wheeling Carolina game, there was a lot of animosity between teams there. A lot of former Cobras in Wheeling with the Miners now. So I definitely think that's going to be another fiery game. So if you're looking for some great football tonight, I believe that's going to be one of those games you're going to want to tune in on. Real quick, while we're there, who do you have winning that game, Wheeling or Carolina?
It doesn't happen often, but me and Krish agree on something today. I'm going with Wheeling. I think they're due, man. They're due. They're getting closer and closer. So far this season, I think they're gonna get into the win column tonight.
This is what I like about Wookie. He picks with his heart. He fully expects Carolina to break my heart again, which he obviously did pick Carolina. I will say that we have quite a few picks of Carolina. Trey from Off the Wall also picked Carolina, so that's worth something. He's been incredibly accurate on his picks so far this year. Albany defense kid, Wookie, Luke, State of the Stallions, Arena Football Anonymous, and Pylon Productions all picked Carolina. Then we've got Cody Bryant from Inside. I'm sorry. Oh, man, blanking his name, his show name at the moment. I apologize, Cody, if you're watching. So Cody Bryant, we've got I picked Wheeling, you picked Wheeling, Krish picked Wheeling, and Chad picked Wheeling. So we got about a 50-50 split there on this game. So it should be a good one. Wish you could bet on this one for sure. You think James Summers is going to run all over his high school OC? I guess we'll find out. One more question that I wanted to pop back on that Chad brought up. What would you think if Tom Manas, who was just fired by the San Antonio Gunslingers, wound up in Omaha?
That'd be huge.
I definitely, that would definitely be up the alley of a move that Omaha might make. Obviously they've got high standards. Manas has had a lot of success in the NAL in the past, so it would make some sense. Man, I don't know. We might have to keep an eye on that one. It'd be interesting to see him end up there. We got Terry Gore tuning in. Thanks for watching. He says Carolina by 17. That's bold.
Oh.
17 points. Terry, give us an explanation as to why you feel they might be a blowout victory in Carolina tonight. I'm curious. So real quick, let's transition over to the AF1. I mentioned it briefly just a moment ago. They had some streaming issues on Thursday night as well, and that was on Vice TV. Obviously not a good situation for them either. I heard, I didn't catch the end of the game myself, but I heard that it was basically unwatchable. So I know you're also a Billings fan. We won't talk about the fact that you just happen to like all these championship teams, but no, just kidding. What were your thoughts on that game overall, and how did you feel about the streaming issues there at the end?
Well, for starters, I was, again, not to talk trash, knowing I'm a Billings fan now, but I was kind of happy the game was essentially over when it started, so I didn't have to pay too much attention to it. But the last, I'd say specifically, probably 9-10 minutes of the game in the fourth quarter is when it kind of started, and considering, earlier in the night we were going through that with the NAL, I was kind of like, oh no, not again, but it was unfortunate. especially with it being on, a new streaming platform. But really, if trying to think of a good way to say it, if that's the only issue they have, again, if they move forward, they own it and they say, hey, you know what, that's not going to happen again because we're going to fix this. That's fine. But if it again becomes a recurring thing, then it's going to be, man, what is with, these leagues and streaming? It's going to start to, kind of snowball a little bit, I think. And again, it's going to give a negative look to the sport because, if you publicize a game and you're excited about a game, you want to see the game. You don't want to see, a circle buffering in the middle the whole time. But for the most part, up until that point, I will say full-heartedly that the stream was perfect until that point. So I don't know what changed, what shifted or happened, but at the end of the day, it was solid up until that point. So hopefully, again, that's just a blimp on the radar, and they can figure out whatever that was that went wrong and prevent it from happening again at a later date or in another game.
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly hope that isn't an issue moving forward. Real quick, if you could take a moment and hit the like button wherever you're watching, that does wonders for the algorithm wherever you might be watching, and tells that platform to help push us out to new viewers. One more real quick thing that I wanted to get to on the AF1, and shout out to Zach Kyleman for finding this information. So you could definitely follow him at Zach Kyleman on Twitter. Here's a breakdown of the ratings that we saw during the most recent Vice game before this past weekend, which was the Southwest Kansas Storm versus Oregon Lightning. Average of 13,000 viewers during the broadcast. So when you see that, how do you feel overall about that number? And then knowing that this does not consider any rewatches after the fact, nothing like that. This is strictly live audience.
I mean, personally, I would like to see it higher, but I feel like no matter what the number is, you would want to see it higher. But I mean, considering it is not just a regular cable channel, it is a channel that you have to, have an extra package for or subscribe to. It is a solid number, but again, always strive for to be better and get more. And I really would like if again they would give updated ratings after the rewatches and stuff like that, because you could easily see this number double, potentially depending on what areas and time zones people were in. They may have not watched the game because it was a night game, and on a Sunday night, especially, so a lot of people aren't going to stay up super late and start off the Monday morning work week, half asleep. So I think it definitely, there's always room for improvement, but I think it's a solid start. But I want to see that number continue to rise and gain more traction. So
I agree. Zach says something here that first of all had me go back and look, and he's right. Would be the most watched 50-yard game of the weekend by an easy margin. He was correct on that, but at the same time, when you think about television broadcasts, 13,000 is not a high number. It's a good number in the sense that means a lot of casual fans tuned in, because a lot of these games don't hit that number live. So obviously a lot of people were tuning in that weren't, your average arena football fans. But at the same time, it's something that I would like to see rise over the remainder of the season. And hopefully we ultimately see it do that. I'm not sure if Zach continues to post those ratings, and if he doesn't, we'll go ahead and dig those up for this show going forward. But definitely wanted to give him his flowers for pulling that up, because it was honestly a really good idea to get out there, for a channel that isn't easily attainable. It's a good number. That's fair. Vice could definitely be easier to get on TV for sure. Be interested to see what IFL numbers are. That's one thing that I do not like about the new IFL network, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but I wish that we had some sort of numbers for them. Real quick before you get out of here, I want to get your thoughts on one more bet, and then we'll send you on your way. Albany is a 18.5 point favorite in Salina tonight. Is that a lock, or are you maybe taking Salina in the points?
Well, it's kind of like when I bet on college football. When you see big spreads like that, you kind of think there's no way, but then you go back and the score is that way. Um, because it's earlier in the year, I would be I might take Salina with the points. uh, just because it's such a fine line when if the point spread is that big. All it takes is one miscue or one time where normally they would say try a close field goal attempt, but instead they go for it because it's late in the game. They're up double digits. They don't get it, and that keeps you within that point total. So I would honestly I would probably take Salina with the plus 18.5 and roll with it because it is early in the year, so you don't quite have a total feel for what teams are doing right now.
That's fair for sure. Real quick before you get out of here, who'd you pick in this game?
I picked Albany.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair for sure. They look like a juggernaut right now.
Since we're specifically betting money line on our pick'ems, you got to go with the 20-point favorite.
Absolutely, and I also picked Albany. I think the vast majority of people picked Albany. I mean, they haven't lost a game yet, and I mean Salina. So far, with the way they looked, I don't know if they're the team to beat them. So it'll be interesting to see exactly how this unfolds. But TJ, I know you got to get out of here, man. I appreciate you sticking this out with me. Looking forward to next week's episode, and hopefully I show up on time so we get a start, right at 6 o'clock, so you don't have to jump off too quick.
No worries, man. Thanks for having me as always, and everybody out there, get ready, man. It's a packed weekend for games.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you later, buddy. I appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your Saturday. All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Albany here as well. Like I said, I picked them in the pick'em. At that 18.5 point deficit would normally scare me in a betting scenario, but you look back at the games that Albany has played so far, and it's been a large deficit in nearly every game. So definitely interested to see how this one finishes up, but I think that's going to about do it for this show. If there's anything else you guys want to see in the near future on around the indoor football world, anything we didn't cover, would love to talk more about that next week. We will definitely go in depth a little bit more on the San Antonio Gunslingers head coaching change, which caught a lot of people off guard. I know I was one of them that did not expect that to come to pass. Tom Menas is as good of a coach as you can get. So fairly certain there was more outside of that ended up being the reasoning. Typically there is. So definitely would love to find out more about that scenario. Maybe we can even try and get him on here again, which I definitely will be reaching out about that. So Coach, if you're watching, I'm coming in your DMs. Hopefully you can get on here and give us a little bit more insight on what happened. But before we get out of here, I'm going to hit one more commercial. You guys have a great Saturday afternoon. Look forward to a lot of great games, and hopefully you have a fun-filled weekend packed with a whole lot of football.
I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer. I'm a game changer.